Hi there, everyone. My name is Dr. Tucker, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about AT, which is assistive technology, and AI, artificial intelligence. The learning goals for today within this video are identify how assistive technology and artificial intelligence can promote equity and access within the classroom, and analyze how assistive technology can be integrated within the subject areas to increase student access to content area curriculum. So those are our learning goals, so we're going to kind of come back to those at the end, and hopefully you can think about those and how you can support your students in your classroom. So the roadmap here, we're going to start off and do a review of UDL, Universal Design for Learning, assistive technology, and artificial intelligence. I will introduce the SET framework to you, which is a framework that we utilize within assistive technology. And then I'm going to share some examples of tasks within the classroom and then tools to align with them. What I want to highlight here is the federal definition of assistive technology. And this definition is so important because it aligns with federal funding and identifies exactly what can be qualified as assistive technology. What is really important and emphasized within this definition is that it's any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether it's acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that's used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities. Nowhere in this definition does it say it needs to be electronic, does it say it needs to be battery powered, interactive, or a touch screen. So often the term assistive technology can sometimes give it a bad rep or an expensive rep, but assistive technology really can be anything that can support a student. It can be a visual schedule, maybe a pencil grip, or a slant board. So really thinking kind of outside of the box in terms of what assistive technology could help the students within your class. And this is a summary from your last kind of content when looking at the Universal Design for Learning guidelines. I did link some background here. It was first introduced in 2008, but the newest version, which is the 3.0, was published in 2024. And that really focuses identity as variability, acknowledging external variables, and learner-centered. And the cartoon that I have on the screen with the gentleman shoveling the stairs and then the ramp covered in snow with the students all waiting, and one student who utilizes a wheelchair and asking him, can you please shovel the ramp? And he said, I'll shovel the ramp after the stairs. But if you shovel the ramp first, everyone can get in. And that's the concept of Universal Design for Learning. If we proactively design and plan for all students to learn and remove barriers, then it becomes smoother, right? Or it's automatic when you do have students with disabilities who need accommodations. They're generally built in already. So again, with Universal Design for Learning, we think about variability from the get-go, and really it is a part of our DNA. Each of us are different, and that beautifully moves over into the classroom, that each student, each learner is different, and then we need to honor their learning in different ways. And Universal Design for Learning helps us do that. And technology, whether it's assistive technology, artificial intelligence, or educational technology, can support the effectiveness of teachers being able to do that. One of the reasons, so there's a lot of pros and cons to artificial intelligence. I just want to kind of provide a little angle here. Artificial intelligence, or also known as large language models, what I want to emphasize here as teachers is that no matter what, you do not put any personal identifying information or PII about any of your students in artificial intelligence. No names, no backgrounds, schools, age, last names, first names. Please don't put any identifying information for any students. What is really nice, though, is that AI can help significantly with multiple means of engagement. So I have a link here on this slide that I created some word problems, math word problems with common pop stars. And so we can leverage AI to take a lesson that we have already planned and are ready to complete, and then think about, how can I then engage my students in this? What do they love? Can I make this learning authentic and meaningful for them? And that kind of really ties into multiple means of engagement within universal design for learning, and really thinking about how we can leverage AI. We, as the teachers with the expertise, we are still teaching it. We need to create the relationship with the students and teach the content and identify how we're teaching it. But AI can help us to really provide that modification and increase motivation if we want to then kind of align it to our students' interests. And I have, after you watch this video, you're going to read 2 articles looking at what are teachers saying about AI, and then also kind of talking a little bit about an assistive technology framework, which is why we're bringing this up in this kind of full module, which everyone is taking. And what I want to highlight really with AI is the skill. Okay, I apologize about that. This article, when we look at what is really important for teachers, is to identify what tasks to then leverage and offload into AI. And that's something, again, as I mentioned previously, we are the humans in the loop, the experts, and we are the ones making the connections with the students and implementing the teaching. So what is important is for us to identify what tasks can we utilize and leverage AI, and then use our expertise to analyze and ensure that that content is valid and reliable. And so there's a quote from a teacher here that says, "The addition of AI has allowed a return to my personal life after school hours, completing the necessary lesson planning within the confines of prep time assigned. I no longer have to spend hours looking through books for examples to use with students." And I do think leveraging AI to provide examples, double checking and making sure they're correct, of course, is very important, but really identifying for you yourself as a professional what tasks are appropriate to then leverage AI and what tasks are not. As an example, within my own profession, as I'm a special education teacher, utilizing AI to then develop and analyze student data to then develop an IEP goal is not appropriate. However, I can use it to then refine and help make sure that my IEP goal is measurable, specific, and objective, as long as I make sure that I review any student identifying information before I leverage AI to say, hey, what are some gaps? What are some difficulties? Using AI more as a colleague or a coach versus just a creator. Because again, you are the human in the loop, and you need to use your expertise and your knowledge of evidence-based teaching practices to ensure that whatever you are leveraging AI for, it is valid, appropriate, and reliable. The reason we have assistive technology here in this module for everyone is that all of you will have students with disabilities within your class or your kind of course load. And what is really important is that we think about the role of each and every teacher within the multi-tiered systems of support. And so we're all familiar with the triangle, right? The bottom we've got is our essentially tier 1, which is regular education, whether it's content area or related service. But here, what we really identify is what is the relationship with assistive technology, is that all educators and teachers should be utilizing universal supports with technology. And that's something, right, that we all can use and demonstrate within our practice, whether it's reading directions for an art project using text-to-speech and modeling how a student can listen to text on a Google slide if they have difficulty hearing it. Or if it's in a PE class, we're using visuals to demonstrate how we are kind of doing the specific movements within a sport, or using a visual task list to understand exactly the sequence of a particular movement. Leveraging the use of assistive technology across all of these content areas in the mainstream classroom in that tier 0 allows us to support all students wherever they are within the learning content, not just our students with disabilities. So this is another one of the articles that you'll engage with after this video, looking again at assistive technology, multi-tiered systems of supports. I do acknowledge that I've got a bias here, that both of those articles I did help write, but I do really believe that they kind of leverage and encompass exactly what we need right now within assistive tech and artificial intelligence. And finally, what I want to highlight for you before I go into the tools is the framework. And so within special education and assistive technology, we focus on the SET framework, which is the student, environment, task, and tool. What this helps us to do is make sure that we are making student-centered, right, person-centered technology decisions instead of, ooh, there's a new iPad. Oh, I'm going to get that. And we see this in school systems. This often doesn't happen, right? The big movement was smart boards, right, for a while. And they installed smart boards in every single classroom, and often they were in the middle of the wall. But they even did that in the kindergarten classroom where the kiddos couldn't even reach it, right? So that's an example of not putting the students first. And so here we really want to think about who is the student, what are their strengths and weaknesses, what's the environment in which they need to use it? Is it art class? Is it PE? Is it social studies, science, math, language arts? What is the task they need to do? Do they need to read their examples? Do they need to write their math equations? Do they need to write an essay? And what are the tools that are currently being utilized? So is it a Google school? Are they already using Google Suites? Do the students have Chromebooks, iPads, Microsoft? Really looking at what is the least restrictive environment in terms of tools, and then how can we then explore those tools to see if they can help, back to the definition, improve, increase, or maintain the functional capabilities. And so now what I'm going to do the rest of this video is going to look at a specific task and then give you some examples of tools that can then support a student within that task. So reading an article or electronic text. So often for many students, they can have decoding challenges where they have difficulty reading, or maybe some vocabulary challenges, especially our multilingual learners. And so there are three tools here. Read and Write for Google is a free Chrome extension. It is that purple puzzle piece. Many schools already have it. And again, because the free version will provide text-to-speech and vocabulary dictionary, many schools have it preloaded on students' Chromebooks already. I will say that the voice on that one isn't the best. What I do prefer is Immersive Reader through Microsoft. This is something that is provided within the Edge browser if you are more in a Microsoft school, but again, it is for free, where a student can utilize Immersive Reader to listen to any text. And then finally, I want to highlight on many smartphones, and I'm going to kind of highlight Apple because they're built in versus the Android where you have to kind of download something extra. But within an iPhone or an iOS setting on an iPad, you can turn on speech selection or text to speech, where then the student can hear content and see it highlighted on their iPad. Continued, some of the tools that I really like here, one of them is Rewordify. This takes a challenging reading article and it will take that and modify it, change the vocabulary, and provide some different examples that is utilized for free. What I also like is that within this platform, it has a kind of worksheet follow-up. So even if we are removing some of that language to reduce the barrier for the students, we're still teaching that language. So the language can be taught in isolation to ensure that it's not a barrier for these students. I'm just going to come up here and click on this one to show an example. And so here's an example of Rewordify. And what it does here is that I have kind of it's taken the word loathe and it's replaced it with the word hate. I like this style. For me, it reminds me of the No Fear Shakespeare books, where we have the original language on one side and then kind of the modern language on the other. In the Paul V. Sherlock Center, this library is a collection of modified literature. So this is modified in terms of content. So it's simplified for students who are struggling readers. And then also it is symbol supported. So for example, there are modified versions of Romeo and Juliet. I'm pretty sure Hamlet is on there as well, in addition to some of the other very classic literature titles and some new modern literature titles. Learning new concepts. Vocabulary is one of my favorites. I'm going to age myself, but it's like Schoolhouse Rock, right? Where you can sing songs, but vocabulary is more of a hip hop and rap sort of a style, but they have a wide variety of accompanying supports with those songs. So lesson plans, stop and thinks, vocabulary. Pear Deck also allows you to have embedded interactive activities within a Google slide presentation. Continuing on with vocabulary, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Quizlet. I will say that their AI integration has taken this awesome platform to be super awesome. So there's so many different ways to create content that will enable a student to study, right? Share content. You as the teacher can do that. But again, this can model study skills for students who might have some difficulty and provide kind of easier access to content to re-engage with it afterwards. Knowledge AI is another AI tool. This one is paid, but there's many kind of coming out in this space that will provide an all-encompassing learning package. So you put in content and then it gives you, a video and an interactive game and keynotes. And so something like this can help when we are looking at multiple means of representation and providing these different options for students. Again, always important that we're the human in the loop and we're auditing and making sure that this content is valid and reliable, but it can really help again with some of our UDL and our motivation for our students. Modifying with AI, I will say that Magic School and Diffit are two of the, I'd say, most popular. And Diffit I really love, especially they have continually updated to ensure that their product is high quality. And Diffit allows you to take a topic, a theme, or a question, a website, an article, and modify it to a variety of different grade levels. What I love about it as well is then it asks some guiding questions. What is the key learning that you want your students getting out of this text? And it will give you options, or you can write in your own. And then it will say, well, what is the purpose of this? Are you using it within a lesson? Are you using it as homework? Is it, a center-based activity? So they're really kind of trying to understand instructionally where you're using it to provide the best quality of content in order to support you in differentiating for your students. And so I will say that I love Diffit's approach, and they're continually revising, and there is a free and a paid version as well. Magic School is a closed AI environment, so this one does not take any of the data that you input and feed it to the large language model, so it's not taking all of your data. And it is made specifically just for educators. So there's a wide variety of different tools. They have a goals creator, a text scaffolder, a differentiator. And so there's a lot of different cool teacher tools within this platform. So I do encourage you to look at that. There are quite a few school districts in Connecticut who do have full subscriptions to Magic School AI. I do personally, I like the Diffit modifier better, but it really kind of depends on what you need it for in the content area. So our next task is writing essays and open responses. So students can have barriers in idea generation, sentence construction, spelling and grammar, and just kind of that blank page terror, which I know I have a lot. And so what I've done here is just outline specific tools across the stages of writing. So in pre-writing, we have electronic graphic organizers. For me, my big feature that I'm always looking for is, can I convert that visual into an outline? When I was a teacher, when I had my students utilize a graphic organizer, and I was like, okay, now we're going to take those ideas and put it into a paragraph. They're like, oh, miss, we already wrote it, right? And that immediately became a barrier for them. Whereas I wanted them to be able to have the benefit of that visual organization and not have rewriting it be a barrier. So these two tools, MindMeister and Bubble.us, have options for you to take that visual organization, convert it to a text outline. So now your students don't have to retype what they've done, they can just elaborate on. Drafting using voice typing is very helpful. And just teaching students how to utilize that they have to use punctuation so that they don't get one page of a run-on sentence. And word prediction. And also you can think about utilizing AI from the teacher lens in terms of writing frames, writing scaffolds, sentence starters. That can be really helpful utilizing maybe Copilot or Gemini. I would say, I apologize, I have ChatGPT on here, more Gemini or whatever tool that your school system supports. Editing and revising, I love Grammarly. That tool saves my life. And so that's something that will really support editing and revising for your students. And also there's an AI tool called HyperWrite, which will then provide feedback for your writing as well. Publishing, there's so many options. I just gave a couple here, where Book Creator is a free tool. And then Pixin is the other one that allows you to create customized avatars and do kind of comics, you name it. The reason why I like this one is because as you are developing your avatar, they have a wide variety of skin colors, outfits that are culturally relevant. They've got wheelchairs, canes, hearing aids. So it really does allow a student to kind of reflect themselves, or they can kind of do something totally outside of the box that really shows kind of who they are creatively. And so this is one of those only tools that I really find provides an appropriate cultural representation in addition to a creative outlet. Math is really hard for technology because it is generally kind of vertical in nature, and all of our kind of text-based processing is linear. And so these are two tools. So Kami, many schools also have, where you can type and add text boxes onto PDFs. I actually find that it's very helpful for math when we do have math problems or worksheets where students can add text boxes. The other tool that I utilize a lot is SnapType. This is a free iPad app or an iPhone app where a student can take a picture of a worksheet, and then when they tap, they can insert text anywhere. So it does allow them, again, to put an answer, carry a 1, add a remainder, all of that stuff, which again, something like Microsoft Word doesn't allow for. Many different supports for math instructional, virtual manipulatives to reduce kind of the urge to play or kind of misusing of virtual manipulatives, or kind of carrying over and supporting it at home. So these are just some examples. I love IXL Practice just because it breaks math concepts down into very minute steps to isolate where the student's kind of current instructional level is. These are two tools that are really new and support fine motor and math. Kiwi Write, you can think of this as Microsoft Word, but for math. So it's a grid-based layout, and it has kind of a keyboard number pad layout on the side. It does not solve it for the students. All it does is it allows them to output, but utilizing a keyboard. And Graspable Math does solve it for students. So it does do a lot of kind of algebraic and balancing equations, but it will then execute it for the student. It's very interesting. So again, depending on your students and where you're using it, these tools can be very helpful. Note-taking while reading, I will say that I was teaching in a Google school for a long time and didn't realize that your little sidebar here in Google has this beautiful sidebar. And Google Keep allows you to then download the extension where you can take notes while you're reading, or you can also have kind of reminders on the side. And so I have an example here where I utilized a kind of mnemonic device that I have on the side as I am working on my Google document. So never underestimate the power of these built-in Google tools. Interact with handwritten notes. So this is an AI tool called Xnote, and this allows you to handwrite, and it will then immediately take your notes and put them into an app. It does not audio record, so that kind of is a benefit when we think about classrooms. Here, as you write, it puts it into your phone, and then you can actually interact with them. So it will then kind of classify it for you. You can ask questions of your notes. It is a really cool, comprehensive tool. Classroom Screen is one of my favorites just because as an overall instructional tool, it provides visuals and widgets. So you can utilize it kind of as a base. I use this a lot for presentations where you can have visual cues, you can interact and add visual timers. There's a random name generator, there's symbols, so many different ways to again provide multiple means of expression, representation, or engagement for students. And I also have a link to just some free visual timers, which are fun, but also can be distracting. So use wisely with the right students. And another tool, AI tool, one of the ones that I like the most because you don't have to log in. So there's no sharing of your personal data or students is Goblin Tools. What this does is you can type in a task and it does something called task analysis. So it breaks that task down into specific details and specific sub-steps. And what I also like about it is you can add in a time estimate as well. So it will then give you an estimation of how long will this possibly take you. And that's a really nice teachable moment for many students if you're assigning a science lab or you're completing kind of a math test or a word problem. It can break it down for a student and give the estimated times. Be like, do you really think you could finish that in your third period study hall? So I really like that. They also have some teachers tools. I don't find them as robust as some of the other ones, but those are available. Some other instructional tools, Gamma allows you to create very pretty presentations for students. And EduAid also has some engaging activities, prior knowledge. And Ella AI creates social stories with custom pictures. So there's so many different options here. So I appreciate your time. This is kind of if you are interested in learning about new tools, you can follow me to just really share exactly how the tools change so rapidly. So remember, task, tool, after the environment, and after the student. So student, environment, task, and then tool.
Bad dog.
Thank you all so much. And don't forget that you need to take the quiz after this particular video. And if you have any questions, my email is right there. Thank you all.